Summer 2006. You're 10 years old, cut it out. Not a care in the world, zero responsibilities, Sean Alexander's on the cover. Fully unaware of how complex life will one day become and the challenges you'll face because you still have all of your childlike wonder and it's all being funneled into wanting to be Leon Kennedy. Playing Resident Evil 4 on my GameCube that summer is still the fondest gaming memory I have. I played it over and over, beginning to end, at least 10 times, and it wasn't even to get a better time or to unlock everything. I just really loved being in that world. I was at the perfect age for a character like Leon to really click with me. No longer the scared rookie cop I nervously watched my dad pilot through the halls of the RPD. This Leon was cool under pressure. He made jokes in the face of danger, and it was my entry into playing these games instead of just watching. He's suplexing ganados, backflipping lasers, and making the knife of all things look cool for once. The knife was always the last resort weapon, which you had to use if you weren't careful with your resources and had no ammo. I know that's not necessarily true gameplay-wise, but like, thematically. But Leon was using it like it was the best tool he had. Because it was. Best example is the classic knife fight with Krauser. Me and my friends lost our fucking minds over this cutscene. QTEs were still fresh and exciting then, so seeing so many of them back to back made me feel like I wasn't just watching a cool cutscene, but actually taking part in the fight. Everything in the game up to that point made Leon my favorite character, but this scene in particular had 10-year-old me getting yelled at by my teacher for flipping my pencil and making whoosh noises. And as much as this scene resonated with me, it also left me wishing I could do any of that shit in the actual game. From that point on, I started using the knife on every enemy I could, just so I could get even a little bit of that authentic Leon experience. The knife in RE4 is good, but gameplay Leon is not using it the same way that cutscene QTE Leon uses it. It didn't ruin the experience or anything, but it always stood out to me. It was the first time I can remember wishing a cool cutscene was something I got to play instead. As the years passed, I still felt that nostalgia for my favorite part of the game whenever I did a playthrough, but as an adult, I was more aware than ever that this section would be 10 times better as a playable fight, which is why I stood up and screamed, "Oh my god, they actually did it," when I saw Leon and Krauser having that fight in gameplay in the Remake's third trailer. I don't think I'm shocking anyone when I say that Resident Evil 4 is my favorite game of all time. For the longest, I considered Metal Gear Solid to be my number one, and while I still think it's a better game that ticks more boxes for me, no game has kept me running back to it time after time like RE4. Now, I've said it a few times in other videos, but I feel the need to say it again. I was very much against the idea of an RE4 remake. I knew that after 2 and 3 did so well that it was gonna happen eventually, but I was always a firm believer that it aged extremely well and did not need to be remade. It would only piss people off because the expectations Capcom would have to live up to would be unrealistic and, quite frankly, unfair. RE4 was a moment in gaming history that you can only fully understand if you were there when it happened. Its DNA is so deeply woven into so many games and franchises that are still around today. Something as simple as an over-the-shoulder camera and separating movement and combat with no persistent targeting reticle on the screen may seem unremarkable today, but before January of 2005, games really weren't doing that. It was such a groundbreaking experience for so many people that I just knew a remake would have to live up to the impossible expectation of making people feel the way they did when they first played it. It's the curse of remaking a classic, that dangerous balancing act of successfully playing on people's nostalgia and giving them something that feels familiar, while also fighting through that nostalgia to give them something fresh and new that they might not have known that they wanted. It's pushing a boulder up a hill after years of running away from one. And bro, I just didn't see it, especially after not Nemesis over here. I had almost no faith that this would work. I wanted it to be good, but I expected it to be disappointing. Now, I hope I've given enough of my history with this game to qualify what I am about to say about this game. Resident Evil 4 Remake feels like it was made just for me. It clicked with me so much and somehow accomplished the impossible feat of making me feel like I was playing RE4 for the first time all over again. It is so goddamn good. It made me afraid to go back and play the original because I had very few issues with the original and it solved almost all of them. Somewhere around my 57th time playing the demo, I knew this shit was going to be special, and the full game just further reinforced that. It feels so good to play. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it gives you such a perfect blend of gameplay and presentation that feels so familiar yet so refreshing. This is where I might lose some of the OGs, because depending on what you like most from a game, Remake could either be a huge hit or a massive miss. If what you loved the most about RE4 was that cheesy, over-the-top tone with that B-movie atmosphere, Remake is going to feel a bit underwhelming. It does stay fairly faithful to the tone of the original, but it gives it a modern twist, meaning that some of those iconic cutscenes and quirky little moments aren't going to feel exactly the same or could be removed altogether, and that might be a deal breaker for you. And I'm fine with that. The game came out in 2005, and it was written like a game that came out in 2005. And that's not a value judgment at all. There's nothing in the old game that's particularly egregious, and certainly not egregious enough for certain re-releases to pretend that they never happened. Ashley calling Leon a perv for aiming up her skirt from below a ladder would seem pretty outdated today. But the general idea of getting some type of positive feedback from the game for experimenting with its mechanics and thinking outside the box is something that made RE4 special for people and could have been implemented in a different way. Just saying. So if stuff like that resonates with you more than just pure moment-to-moment gameplay, then Remake might not hit as hard for you. But if you're a gameplay-first kind of person, this shit is incredible. And if you just so happen to be the kind of person who always secretly wished that you could use the knife in much more creative ways, and that Leon's cool, quippy personality would be present in gameplay and not just in the cutscenes, and that maybe those two could be linked in a way that makes Leon act more cool and cocky based on how well you play, then you would be me. And well, I'm the one they made the game for, after all. You see this? You see all this? Yeah, you see that one? Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. The gameplay already feels super satisfying. Each and every weapon feels great. Not the bolt thrower, great to use. The melee won't clear a crowd quite like it used to, but it feels impactful and sounds brutal. And Leon even adjusts the type of kick he does based on how close the enemy is when you do it. And when you do kick some poor bastard's neck in the opposite direction, he starts throwing out one-liners. Are you dead ass? I'm applying that directly to the forehead. This is the type of stuff I would only imagine Leon would say during gameplay in the original if he didn't forget English in between cutscenes and only knew the language of grunting. The new knife mechanics, however, are by far my favorite addition, and they could even be something other games try to copy. It's that good. For starters, I love that there's more than just the standard slash this time around. You can finally use it the way you did in the old cutscenes, and that's pretty cool. Like, I like how you can kind of spam it and get those slashes, or like aim it for a more precise stab, but being able to parry attacks with this knife really turned this game the fuck up. It gives the game a solid defensive option that can save you from getting hit if you're in a tight spot, or even turn the tables on an enemy if you time it perfectly. And once you get that timing down, you can create some insane moments. Seriously, this game lets you go crazy if you get good enough with it. It adds another layer of depth to the gameplay, and gives players the potential to make their Leon an unstoppable killing machine that never gets hit and scoffs at the very idea of danger. If you cruise past an encounter, parrying and kicking your way past each ganado without taking damage, Leon scoffs and shrugs it off like it was nothing. On the other hand, if you mistime your parries, take a bunch of damage, and have to use your heals, Leon will grimace in pain after he takes out the last enemy, showing how much of a toll your mistakes took on him. He even has specific voice lines for when you use the last healing item in your inventory. The concern in his voice when he yells none left almost sounds like he's telling you to get your shit together or else he's going to fucking die. It acts as a subtle rating system for each encounter. The Leon you experience in gameplay is only as cool as you make him. You're supposed to be chaining together parries, kicks, and headshots, and the game uses his reactions as an indicator of how well you did. You don't get the flashy DMC style pop-ups, but the idea is still conveyed effectively. Look, I don't want to belabor the point, but I also do not want to understate it. To me, this is the best gameplay loop I've experienced in any Resident Evil game ever. It has, quite like its predecessor, set the bar for what games in this franchise should feel like. It properly iterates on a classic formula and doubles down on the direction the games have been going in lately, utilizing their biggest strength, the characters, and weaving their personalities into the gameplay, allowing players to experience these characters and what makes them so iconic, moment to moment, and not just during cutscenes. And you know what? I'm gonna say it. It really makes you feel like Leon. And this has kind of been keeping me up at night lately. I played an ungodly amount of this game last year. I have so much footage from so many playthroughs that I sometimes struggle to find the footage from the first one. It came out early in the year, and once it was out, it was the only thing I was playing. Before I knew it, it was 2024, and I realized that 2023 was the first year since 2006 that I did not do a full playthrough of the original, and I found myself being stuck on how good the remake felt to play and how much I would be thinking about it while playing the OG. So I just kept playing the remake. And I had a lot of shit going on last year, so it really did become my comfort game. I was afraid that I would go back to it and have some stupid epiphany and realize that I've been blind to the game's flaws all these years and how the remake was clearly superior. I booted it up on my GameCube not long ago, and I can firmly say without a shadow of doubt that it would be a stupid epiphany, because I still had as much fun as I always do. If anything, it gave me a greater appreciation for what they were able to accomplish on this goofy looking piece of shit. It still looks and feels good after all these years, and I don't think there will ever be a day where I get tired of playing it. In hindsight, it was silly to think that I would ever get tired of it, but I think that speaks to how much the remake captivated me. The merging of everything I love about Leon as a character, and everything I've always wanted this game to feel like, has created a sense of game feel I haven't felt since the first time I played the original. And how they handled recreating their most iconic character is a big reason for that. This is honestly what I was most afraid Capcom would fumble the execution on. Every little detail would be scrutinized on such an iconic character, but against all odds, they did right by him. Leon in this game feels so familiar, but so new and exciting at the same time, because they really didn't change much about him. This is just what Leon would be like if the original were released today. He's still just as suave, cool, cocky, sarcastic, and corny as he was in the original. Sure, he isn't as women as he used to be, but I really don't think that's as big of a character-defining trait as some people make it out to be. He's definitely a ladies' man in the original, and he still is in this game too, but cutting out the lines where he's hitting on Hunnigan really don't take away from his character at all. I wouldn't have a problem if they were kept in, but it's just not essential enough for me to say a part of the real Leon is missing without them being in. It's secondary. The thing that makes Remake Leon feel so new is that we see his personality in the gameplay much more than we did in the original. This guy has something to say about everything. Items he finds, weapons he picks up, just about anything you can examine will have him chiming in on it. We got to see some of this in the original through the text that would pop up, but it feels much more personal now. We get a slight introduction to what he's like in the opening cutscene, and we don't have to wait for the next one to peer back into his mind. We don't have to wonder what Leon is thinking when he narrowly evades getting beheaded by a chainsaw-wielding maniac. He tells us as it's happening. They did the same in RE2, but it showed how green and afraid Leon was as a rookie cop. You miss too many shots as the zombie's closing in, and he starts freaking the f*** out. Now we have even more of these interactions, but with a more calm and seasoned Leon. It's another benefit these remakes have, the ability to seamlessly transition these characters into the different stages of their lives. Leon is legitimately traumatized by what he went through in Raccoon City, and that trauma is now being used as context for why Leon is so goofy, silly, haha funny about what he's currently going through. It's like he uses comedy as a coping mechanism. He's witnessing some of the most brutal, visceral, nightmare-inducing stuff a person could ever see, and his reactions? You gotta be kidding me. Blow a guy's head off?
Next.
Blow a guy's head off and he grows a second head that's a giant mouthful of teeth? You're serious. Barely escape that giant mouth biting his head off? No food for you. I knew that they were leaning into this being how he copes with the shit he's seeing when the night started moving and he goes,
Come on, you can't be serious.
This guy has like a million different variations of you gotta be kidding me, but this really felt like he was saying like, dude, come the f*** on. He's fought giant ogres, nearly been split in half by two chainsaw women, seen a man transform into a giant centipede, and yet he cannot believe that the goddamn suits of armor are infected too. The guy can't catch a break. And what does he say when he finishes them off?
Nighty-night. Nights.
Getting to see this much personality, moment to moment, during the gameplay, really made me feel like I was experiencing 2005 Leon for the first time all over again. It somehow endeared me to a character that I already loved again, and I'm honestly still shocked that it happened. Remakes like this aren't supposed to work. They're supposed to disappoint. They're supposed to fail and serve as an example of why you don't mess with a classic. But it isn't. Resident Evil 4 Remake is an example of what can happen when the people behind a project like this understand the significance of the source material and have a deep appreciation for it. It's been widely well received and it's already a fan favorite, but it really clicked with me because it is almost shot for shot exactly the kind of game I wanted as a kid. And I'll admit, I'm a little biased because of it. This game has flaws, like it's stupid, dumb, very bad, professional difficulty, so stupid. I don't even think they tested it. But I look past some of those flaws because this game feels so tailored towards what I like about Resident Evil that it feels impossible to me. One big criticism the game got on release was that they cut out the U3 boss fight. The boss fight I always hated. I'm sorry, man, I thought the cage section was cool the first time, but it got old fast, and the second phase is just so boring to me. The third act of RE4 was always the weakest, and this fight being crammed into it always felt unnecessary. So it wasn't an outright deal breaker that it wasn't in the game for me. And for what it's worth, I'm not giving them a pass for making it and Separate Ways DLC. I understand that it's not 2005 anymore and game development is different, but it will always innately feel wrong that content that was a part of the original package is DLC in a remake. I'm sorry, I just can't get over that. I don't care if it's irrational. But flaws and all, I cannot get enough of this game. And to me, it's by far one of the greatest video game remakes of all time, which is a miracle coming after this phony fraud piece of shit.